been told that 15 seconds after we see the live button, you see us live, which means that right about now, you should see us on the Inside Line F1 podcast YouTube. Welcome. We're going early this time out. We want to go right after the race. And I have been kind of caught, right? I was commentating on the race, super tired and stuff. I'm like, no, not today. Today, we have to analyze what went down because a lot went down, Kunal, and a lot shouldn't have gone down. It should have been a clear, simple three-stop race from Max Verstappen, which would have potentially left him outside the top three. But then a safety car came. They put him on the hard compound tires. And now we're left wondering, Max Verstappen, P10, how has that happened? How has that all happened according to you? How do you sum it up? I feel it's just chaos.
It's been absolute chaos. We need to thank Max Verstappen for bringing the Spanish Grand Prix to life in every way because, of course, he pulled off that move on Lando Norris at the start. I have to say this given the lag we face when we press live versus when people see us live, I wonder if it was Lando Norris who wrote the code on when you actually go live versus when the software telling you go live just as his race starts. He's back to losing positions on his race start. So anyway, Max Verstappen, of course, very pissed that he had the hard tire, something that Red Bull didn't consider when they put him on the three stopper. They used up all his tire compounds, two softs, two mediums, which they had kept for the race. I
I
think he
want to
was the
question you on that for a second, though. I will interrupt you because my
yes.
data said that Max had one fresh soft and three used softs, and he used only three softs in the race. So where was that fourth one? Like, do we know any of that? Because that's the same question I asked on the broadcast. I was like, why the hards? The mediums, of course, he used up. The hards were the only other option, but that extra soft was it ever there?
So, if I understand correctly, and I'm just going to go back to the tires that he had. So Max has used up. He started the race on a soft, then he went to the soft, and he went to the medium, then he went to the soft again, and then
Oh
he went to the
yeah.
hard. So he did use three sets of softs, and Leclerc was the only driver with two sets of mediums. So I'm told I'm a little soft, so I'm going to try and scream, but I'm going to try and scream the way Max Verstappen was screaming on the radio for A, the hard tire, and then B, for being done in on what happened, right? Because my goodness, I
He was
just
being
can.
clever.
Yes. But Somil, this is a time to actually quote history, right? Spain does do something to extremely well talented Formula One drivers. We saw Jerez 1997, what Michael Schumacher did to Jacques Villeneuve. 2025 Spanish Grand Prix, we saw what Max Verstappen did to George Russell. Do you think he was deliberate? Yes or no?
Very, very deliberate. Everything that Max Verstappen does is deliberate. He doesn't do things by chance. And if we're analyzing his micro positioning at the race start and hence how he's been able to keep P2, we should also then micro analyze where he went wrong here. And I I'm not 100% sure. See, look, we're going live very soon after the race. So we haven't had a proper chance to dig through everything and understand whose fault was it. But, but Russell, it seemed from the first pass, did have his front axle ahead of Verstappen's front axle, which, according to the rules, would mean that he is entitled to that place. And Max would think that he did leave enough of a gap to let Russell go past because at turn four, when both of them clashed, Verstappen brake checked Russell. He made sure that Russell would go ahead so that legally he had allowed Russell to get past so that then he could sweep past in the same corner and get that position back. I think that's being a little too clever, though. I think this team would be like, Max, you've got to let him completely go past, and then you can maybe you can attempt an overtake. But
But
I'd
that's
say
also a
that's
part of the rules that if you're giving track position back to your rival, you need to do it in a way that you do not gain an advantage by giving away the track position. So yes, Max was very deliberate. But you know what I love, of course, this is the Max worst happened or worst happened, as my dad calls it,
wow. That's a good
Okay,
one.
because
That's a
this is
good
a
one.
side of Max which we know is there, which we know we don't love to see. The kind of Max we want to see is the what we saw in Imola, right? That's what we were hoping to see here as well. Exotoric is here saying what a race, huh? Yeah, and I think the safety car just brought it up. But yeah, this is that version of Max Verstappen. I I think this is I don't know what to say. There is a part of me which really likes it because this whole bullheadedness in everything he does. What you said, deliberate, a good way to explain that is he's always knowing how to just bump tires with tires. He's never bumping tires with carbon fiber whenever
Yeah.
he's going racing. So whether it was with Leclerc on the main straight, whether it was with Russell into turn one, Russell into turn four, Russell wherever else, but it's George Russell. I don't know what George Russell does to always have Max Verstappen's beef.
Somehow he's able to trigger Max every single time. And that contact that Max was speaking about, there was only some contact with Leclerc, more so with George on the straight, which must have frustrated him. Like, he felt so helpless at that point that he's on the worst tire, losing out on a podium, and as a result, a championship battle by being caught by two cars who just weren't in his league. Leclerc and George were way far out. In fact, George shouldn't have even split the Ferraris in the first place, given how the race has gone. And exoteric, it's I think Kunal meant hot-headedness instead of old-headedness, but that hot-headedness was definitely on show when he let Russell pass, and it was so deliberate, stopping the car at turn four, making sure that Russell would go past, and then Verstappen would immediately be able to sweep around. That's being a little bit clever. I'm not sure if the rule properly defines to what extent you have to let the car go past before you can actually attack. But I get a feeling Verstappen will force the stewards to write that down as well, because then here he's going to be like, hey, but my front axle was behind Russell's front axle, so technically I have let him past. It's it's tough, and it's Max Verstappen. It's what we expect. But the result, Kunal, for Max, this is his worst performance of the season, worse than Bahrain, if you can believe it. This doesn't make sense. He was supposed to win this race.
Well, yeah, especially with the whole flexi wing saga and how politically Red Bull was trying to push for it to happen. Everyone thought this is where pecking order would change, but McLaren had the largest qualifying gap of the season with Oscar Piastri, of course, 2 tenths out there. And yeah, nothing much has changed with the flexi wings, apart from just lots of money being poured in there. And like Lewis Hamilton said, that everyone's wings are still bending. Just they're now bending half of what they were bending. So just a lot of money that's been poured down. But
And good
sticking
for us. And a story, right? We get to talk about something before the race. Clearly, it meant nothing to McLaren.
Yeah, it meant nothing to McLaren. They of course did a lot of changes into Imola, brought the front wing, did a lot of A/B testing out there. But staying on Max Verstappen, firstly, hats off to Red Bull Max for trying to make a three-stopper work. You said he would have probably been just outside the top three. I think he would have finished third if everything was going fine. And just the luck of the draw when the safety car came out, didn't have soft tires, but they just realized they didn't have the pace, so they said we'll just keep
Yeah.
going faster and we'll just cycle through this. I think Red Bull tried this with Sergio Perez in 2022, so they have tried this strategy before as well. But all in all, I think this is what's going to bring in a lot of viewers back to Formula One. Lots of chatter. We've got the next
Yeah.
fortnight for Max Verstappen to actually keep bringing up the social media posts on how he's the greatest of all time, but also the dirtiest of all times, or whatever word becomes a
Oh,
tone.
you know you're going to be clipped for that, you know?
Yeah, but like I said, it's unsafe. These are ungentlemanly ways of doing things in Formula One. But why don't we get to it? The reason why I think Max got hot-headed about this, old-headed, however we call it, was because he thought that George Russell did not have that corner. He thought that he rammed wheels with George and he didn't have space and he had to hence take evasive action, follow the race director's notes, go around the cone. And he thought that was his position because he was sort of let off track. What do you take that situation? Do you think that was the case? Do you think Red Bull and Max should have stayed there and said, you know what, we'll fight this with the stewards, but we're not going to give up the place on track? Do you think that should have
Da-
been the approach?
damned if you do, damned if you don't, I feel. Because in Jeddah, we were saying the same thing about the opposite, that they should have just dropped back, and that would have helped them be competitive in the race. But now it's the opposite. It's hard to tell, really. I mean, if I was Red Bull, I think they would definitely have looked at the footage again and made that call, because it's hard not to, right? In that moment when everything's so high pressure, these are the kind of calls that GP and the rest of the team are paid for. So they would be looking at the data, they would be looking at the footage and checking where Russell's car would be relative to Max. And if they sense even a hint of drama, Might as well pull him back. You know you can be faster. Max has a good car underneath him. And Exoteric has been putting in a great question and multiple great questions, in fact, which all of you, by the way, can also do by interacting with us on the chat and also by subscribing to the Inside Line F1 podcast. So keep those questions coming. But Exoteric's question is, you think Max is bringing an old school aggression where most of the grid are a bit more gentlemanly? I think he does. He's very aware of the regulations. He's very aware of exactly what he needs to do and the limit till which he can do things. And I think in that case, it was Max being pulled away from the battlefield by the team who said that Max, maybe you are wrong this time. And it's hard to tell while in the cockpit. You might be Max and you might be right 9 times out of 10. But that one time, I get a feeling this was that one time. But a question to you, Kunal, to stir it up even further. Do you think Red Bull could have kept Max out? His soft tires weren't that burned out. They'd only done 6 or 7 laps, if my memory serves me correct. Could they have won this race or perhaps even maintained their podium if they were staying out instead of boxing at a safety car?
Great question. Why don't I just open up my life timing? So let me tell you this, okay? Max Verstappen was on 8 lap old set of softs when he moved on to the new tire for the restart. What did everyone else have? Let's look at that. So Piastri was on a used soft. Norris was on a used soft. Leclerc, Russell, they were all on used softs. Piastri had a 6 lap old soft. Norris had a 7 lap old soft. Maybe they could have, tried that. So the question Red Bull would have been wondering is, we know Max does his magic. Will he do a better magic show on a new set of hards, or would he do better magic on an 8 lap old set of softs? And my concern is with those 8 lap old set of softs, they told him anyway to go flat out all charge. So
Yeah.
he probably didn't have gentle introduction, as the engineers say. He probably just went flat out, and he would have said, I'm anyway going to be, he could have anyway been, blown up the core of the tire, as we call it, the peak use of the tire, because he was chasing Lando Norris down. So it was just down to not having, the what do you say? I think they just wanted better rubber, and they thought hard was the best rubber. We saw Max trying to warm up the tire on the last corner of the restart. What a great save that also was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just Max Verstappen, and that's what makes him special. He's so imperfect in every way, imperfect in also how he sort of extracts. I don't know if imperfect is the only way to put it, but he's unconventional even in the how he's extracting performance from the car itself. Do I condemn what he did on track? Yes, I did. But that's what Max Verstappen is.
Yeah.
If Max didn't do that, he's not Max Verstappen. Maybe he's Min Verstappen. I don't know.
And Formula One is not Formula One. As Exoteric pointed out in the comments, who else would defend with this ferocity if not for Max Verstappen? Thank you to Kimi Antonelli and thank you to Max. Kimi for bringing out the safety car and Max for bringing in some life. But it's a rare mistake. A rare mistake from Red Bull Racing strategically, a rare mistake from Max Verstappen. It has cost him dearly. And in the championship, they have gone a long way off. Quick math time. Wasn't really the best. I once failed in my grade 10, but then got decent results. I'm calculating 186 minus 137. What's the difference between Piastri and Verstappen now? I see 49 points, if that would
Yeah,
be correct.
that's
49
correct.
points. That's a
Yes.
lot to overcome. And Exoteric is saying Max is not known as a tire whisperer. He beats that cars and those tires within an inch of their life, which is what he did to be competitive in the first place, which is why on a three stopper, he was constantly challenging both the McLarens. And I'd say the Red Bulls got backed into this corner, Kunal, because of a decision they made to go on the three stops. Had it not been the safety car, they wouldn't have been forced to do that, to go on the hard compound tire, I mean. But say what you want, it was going to be such a good race. And in front of them, it was Oscar Piastri who executed it to perfection. On the broadcast, I called this race a shootout. I said, this is where we find out which one of the two McLaren drivers are able to create a better, more balanced race where you need tire management, where you need to extract great laps towards the end of your stint, a great start, a great restart, constant fighting with an external element as well. It's a true test. And Piastri did not stutter for even one moment. That
Can,
restart on that long corner towards the end, so smart of him to give it over there and not somewhere in the middle of a straight or something.
can you imagine? Oscar Piastri's won the fifth race of his Formula One career, 5 out of 9 races that he's won. He's, dominated the race, I would say, from start to finish. But we are talking of Max Verstappen, and Max knows how to bring
Always.
the chatter to him. Yes, hats off to, or helmets off to Piastri. I think he's got the measure of what's happening in that McLaren. Fewer mistakes, as always. Just excited to see if and when Max is able to take the battle to him, because Lando hasn't been taking the battle to him. And I was always wondering what sort of Piastri and Norris will we see this weekend, because Monaco was special. It was a qualifying special track, as we saw Lando put the fastest lap around Monaco to do that. But here back again, we are back to Oscar knowing how to extract lap time from that car. You mentioned Kimi Antonelli. Thank you for bringing the safety car out. Yes, but Somil, this is also the fourth consecutive race weekend that a Mercedes power unit has had an issue, or throughout the whole triple header, they've had a power unit issue. We saw Antonelli have a retirement in Imola, and various things that we've seen before. So Mercedes, unreliability is back as a factor in Formula One, which is also very old school. And while Max Verstappen reminds of us of how old school drivers have been, Mercedes is reminding us old school power units have been in Formula One. And yes, there was. I don't believe uh, McLaren was going to play dirty with Oscar Piastri in any way. I know Exotoric just said that maybe there could be some papaya rules at work, and get Norris a free stop and some P1 and all that. No, I don't think I don't think that's going to happen now. Even more so with Oscar Piastri showing very definitive pace with everything that he's been doing. But this race also, I must just read out some key points. Firstly, Matt, thank you. You're from San Francisco. We're going to throw up that interesting comment. He's saying, I don't have a question, which is good because we're always answering questions either on Twitter or Instagram or YouTube or wherever you guys catch us. But he's saying you guys are doing a great job, and I listen to almost every episode.
Oh,
Thank you for the love. Really enjoy your insights and perspective as a new fan to the sport. That's so interesting because we are always trying to simplify everything that's happening in Formula One. And wow, very touched, Matt. Thank you very, very much. This is where I'm going to throw some stats because here's something that I noticed that happened at the Spanish Grand Prix. Fernando Alonso, first time scores points at home. What a brilliant race he had. The team told him to manage, and he said, every time I manage, I'm finishing last. So I'm just going to go for it. And guess what? He got 10th, becomes the 18th driver to score points in 2025. But interestingly, Isaac Hadjar, he jumps Esteban Ocon for ninth place. So that's
exactly.
happened. Hadjar seventh. Again, what a brilliant triple header he's been having. Okay. Nico Hulkenberg, who
I didn't
finished
want you to bring him
fifth.
up. I didn't
Wait a
want you to
minute.
bring him up. You should have.
Wait a minute.
We need to give a proper introduction. This is as good as getting a podium, Kunal. A fifth in a Sauber. We need drum roll. We need a
On
red
merit.
carpet. And we need some band baja. Come on, let's introduce him properly. Will you just call him Nico Hulkenberg or the man who took the slowest Sauber ever to a fifth place, Nico Hulkenberg? Say it correctly. Come on.
I'll tell you what. I'm going to just do a drum roll since you said let's do a drum roll. I heard
Driver
nothing
of the
of
day.
that. Driver of the day, Nico Hulkenberg. What a driver! But let us decode his race because he got there on merit. It's not because Antonelli, of course, was out, and Max got a penalty, but he was still sixth. He pulled off two overtakes on two great drivers. First, Fernando Alonso at the start of the race, Lewis Hamilton at the end of the race. Again, he executed the three stopper just like every other driver. Made the extra stop under the safety car, but he was running therein or thereabouts from the very start of the race itself. So that's Nico Hulkenberg. But the point I was going to say is he's now 11th in the Drivers' Championship, ahead of your favorite driver, Carlos
It's
Sainz
okay. It's
Jr.
okay.
Okay.
If you can do something that special in a Sauber, you deserve it. I mean, come to think about it, Kunal, they finished in the points once last year, two times in 22. They've already gotten, I think this is Hulkenberg's second points finish of the year, and Bortoletto is yet to do so. So 2 points finishes. And with that, they go above Alpine in the Constructors' World Championship and on level with Aston Martin, with Fernando Alonso also getting 2 points from this race. 10
Yes,
points in a Sauber. I think that deserves more attention than Piastri beating Norris. The
yeah,
mega
Sauber,
undercut worked out.
absolutely. Sauber is now ahead of Aston Martin in eighth place. Racing
Oh,
Bulls,
ahead.
thanks to
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Count back.
yeah. Racing Bulls actually jumps Haas for seventh place, thanks to Isaac Hadjar. Okay, Alpine, of course, Pierre Gasly jumped Yuki Tsunoda for 14th place, if anybody cares of that. But there is still movement that happened, Somil. Ferrari jumps to second place in the Constructors' Championship. There was 5 points separating the top, not top, but McLaren's at the top, but 5 points for P2 before the start of the Spanish Grand Prix weekend. Ferrari 165 points, second place. Mercedes is down to third in 159 points and Red Bull are fourth with 144 points. Can you
Wow.
imagine? There is just so much that has happened in this Spanish Grand Prix, including lots of stops, which pretty much didn't make sense after all.
They did not. It was crazy. I was having such a tough time trying to commentate on that race because half the time, a quarter of my brain was occupied on the gap between the top three, and then the next quarter with what the Ferraris were doing, and then the next about Gasly and Hulkenberg because they were on a very different strategy to the rest, and the other quarter was occupied with Fernando Alonso, Bortoleto, Lawson, and that whole pack because it was so crazy. And for a commentator, for a strategist, for a stats person, for people like us, Kunal, who often tend to sit back after the races and dig and analyze what was going on, there's just so much to unpick from this race and in every different corner. Like Behrman going super lengthy on his stints and constantly holding off Lawson and Lawson passing him all the time. And then Alonso every single time coming back and passing them around the outside. I think it's a very solid 8 out of 10 race from an entertainment perspective if you it is it not?
I never get these. I never get these references. 8 out of 10, 10 out of 10.
Okay, how
Last
much
couple of
did you
laps were
enjoy in your couple of hours? Like,
I would say the safety car definitely brought it to life. Before that, it was just a conventional race. The only thing was, okay, where's Max going to end up with the three stopper versus everyone else on the two stopper? You mentioned Fernando Alonso outside of turn three. I love how he just pulled off that move outside of turn three every time. He was so committed. And you know what happened? Alexander Albon, who blew two front wings in 27 laps and then was told to retire the car, he went on to the radio and he told Carlos Sainz, there's a lot of grip on the outside of turn three. You should choose to use that if you need to.
no.
Lovely, because Williams didn't score any points, which is fine. But one last point, Charles Leclerc. I think him being on the podium was actually something that he orchestrated from Friday itself. We used an extra set of soft, prepared for qualifying. Q3 went in the middle when nobody was there, when the track was, a couple of tenths lower. Said, I'm going to save an extra set of mediums. He's coming up behind Lewis Hamilton. And guess what he does? He's saying, guys, let's not waste time. I sacrificed qualifying, not so that I go slow in the race. And then Ferrari, of course, ended up, swapping both their drivers, which I think was pretty fantastic. And can you imagine they are second in the Constructors' Championship.
That is insane.
Mercedes and Ferrari, who are yet to win a race in 2025, are ahead of Red Bull Racing. That has won a couple of races at the hands of Max Verstappen, just the anomaly called Max Verstappen.
Every dream needs a team, as Mercedes said. So yeah, that's insane. Okay, we have a couple of comments. Exoteric for driver of the day would have said Hajar, but yeah, from which orifice did Nico Hulkenberg pull out that performance? It's crazy. And about the names in the channel stream description, well, we can introduce ourselves to you towards the very end of this episode. My name is Somil Arora. You would have heard me on the Hindi Formula One broadcast on Fancode. And you would have heard Kunal a lot or seen Kunal a lot if you watch Viaplay on TV in the Nordics because he's there as an F1 expert almost every single weekend. Shifting homes right now, which is why he's behind a cherry background. Is that cherry or tomato or what's it?
This is actually how a coffee looks from the outside before you extract the bean. I'm sitting at a Costa
That's not a
Coffee.
coffee. That's not coffee. Are
That's
you kidding
coffee.
me? Coffees are red. Okay.
Who cares? You know, we've gone bullfighting in Spain thanks to Max Verstappen in a Red Bull. Is that also one of the title options we could have used? I don't know, but we've had fun.
We have. And to round this episode off, we are seeing so much movement in the Formula One World Championship. Piastri goes clear, has a 10-point advantage, and we see Verstappen now slipping out of the lead a little bit. 49 points between himself and Oscar Piastri, who's now firmly your race leader. Ferrari in second, Mercedes in third in the constructors, jumping between Sauber and Aston Martin as well. Sauber are up into P8. So this has been a great Spanish GP, and we've had a lot of fun time dissecting it all. But the big story still is Verstappen losing his head for once. A rare mistake, Red Bull Racing being caught out by strategy in a rare circumstance. And that's a race win lost, that's a podium lost, and that is potentially some championship loss as well. Exoteric with the last comment of the day saying, "You gentlemen are my new source for F1 stats appreciation. Love me some stats insight." And which is two-thirds of it. F1 Stats Guru is still not a part of this episode. He's unfortunately having some electricity cuts, quite like Kimi Antonelli. But his stats and numbers, they're even crazier. So yeah, I mean, welcome along to the Inside Line F1 podcast. Subscribe to us. A lot of you who watch and comment, we've checked, often don't subscribe to us, which is something that pains our hearts. So if you're watching and interacting with us, click on the subscribe button down below. Click on the bell as well so that you are notified of whenever we go live next. And let's end this episode with one last comment. Driver of the day, Kunal. Piastri, Verstappen, Russell, Leclerc, Hulkenberg, Hajar. What's your pick? Where are you going with this?
It's firstly, the F1 fans have selected Max Verstappen as the driver of the day. Started third, finished 10th, deliberately rammed into George Russell. George Russell defied uh, the race control message or defied the team last weekend in Monaco and got a time penalty. Max Verstappen chose to, do what he did. I don't know. I would say I would pick Max Verstappen. There is always some element of fun, element of unpredictability there, but it's difficult to look away from Nico Hulkenberg, given that it's not often that drivers, in pretty much the slowest team entering in to the Spanish Grand Prix, and to finish fifth, I think that's pretty fantastic, and hard to look away because you know he actually came back to Formula One after a 3-year gap. I'm pretty sure not many midfield drivers have had such opportunities. The way he's grabbed it, and then he's been hired by Audi, by the guys who actually are no longer in that. So I'm pretty sure he's also facing some turbulence resistance because certainly the guys who hired you are no longer running the team. So how do you keep proving that you deserve this seat when the rebrand happens? And today was again one of those times that even though he was out qualified by Gabriel Bortoleto yesterday, which he was very exciting. Nico Hulkenberg said I'd kept 2 tenths of margin entering the last couple of corners, and then I think he said he overheated his tires and he lost the 2 tenths margin, and then suddenly with just 8 tenths covering the Q1 P1 to P20, he said that's it, that was done for me. So yeah, I would say Nico Hulkenberg.
Same. And Hulkenberg's got 16 points. The second Red Bull driver, 7 combined this year. So that's a big story. And what a weekend it's been. 5 plays grid penalty for F1 Stats Guru for missing this episode for sure. We miss him a lot. But he and all of us are going to be back very soon. 2 weeks from now is when we have the next Formula One race. But I can't for the life of me seem to remember which one it is. So what are we going next,
Canada.
Kunal? Canada.
We're going
Oh yeah.
across. Yeah.
Canada on the 13th to 15th June. So make sure that you subscribe to the Inside Line F1 podcast. We'll try to make some really fun content for you guys in the middle of this break as well, because we can never stay away from Formula One. And when we'll be back, we'll bring you a race preview and, of course, the race review as well. So you know the drill. Subscribe to the Inside Line F1 podcast. Click on the bell notification so that you're updated with all of us. And we shall see you in a couple of weeks' time. Till then, have fun and enjoy other sports.